I am getting extremely tired of talking negatively about Pokemon Legends ZA, but Game Freak refuses to do anything to try and make this a better experience. Pokemon Legends ZA DLC Mega Dimensions just dropped, and I gotta tell you, it's not that great.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I was a bit skeptical when the announcement trailer released. I thought it was kind of lame that the DLC was taking place in a reverted Lumio City. No new setting or locations, but hey, at least this game is getting some DLC, unlike Legends Arceus. Well, this game sure got some DLC, but it's very underwhelming. Okay, so if you want my quick take on this DLC, I personally cannot recommend it for its $30 price tag. I'm sorry, I know there is a lot of you that like this game. Trust me, I have seen your comments. I got it because I knew I was going to make content on it and possibly make my money back from it. But even with that, I still regret buying it. Now, don't get me wrong, I like a lot of the new megas in this DLC, to the point that I think they saved some of the stronger designs for the DLC to try to justify the price tag. But a few new megas does not warrant a paid DLC. They are nice, but they are not worth $30. Everything else you get in this DLC is as lazy and boring and unfinished like much of this actual game. And if you're enjoying the DLC, I'm glad for you. I really am. But I'm someone who expects a lot from a DLC that charges me this much. Remember, this DLC is almost the same price as Expedition 33 right now, and that game just got free DLC. A $50 game just got free DLC that will last you pretty much as long as Mega Dimensions will. So how does Game Freak justify this? The reality is, they don't. But let's dive into what Game Freak thinks a $30 DLC is worth. So the setting of the DLC, as I mentioned a second ago, it takes place in a reverted Lumio City. They call it Hyperspace Lumio City. Now that sounds cool and all, but when you finally get your hands on it, it's actually a lot worse than you think. So if you watched the trailer and thought that you would enter this Hyperspace Lumio City and be able to explore around and discover new stuff, well, I'm sorry to break it to you, that's not how it works. No, it's actually much dumber than that. So we get introduced to a new character, Ansha, and her Hoopa, which I actually do like her character. I hope I'm saying her name right, Ansha. More importantly, she makes donuts with berries you give her. So you give her some berries, she gives you a donut, and depending on how many calories the donut is how much time you will have to explore hyperspace. See? I told you. So our time to explore this new area is very limited at first, really only 2 to 3 minutes when you start the DLC. And I'm using the word explore very loosely because there is nothing really new here. The buildings are the same, you're going through the same streets you have gone through in the base game, and worst of all, you're in a tiny section of Lumio City. I get it, you're being timed, so Game Freak didn't want you to get lost or something, but still, it's extremely stupid. The bigger issue is that there's only a few different hyperspace zones that you can actually visit. So you're gonna be repeating the same areas over and over and over again. And I mean, how difficult would it have been to just make the whole map hyperspace? It's really not that much of a different area. It's a different color and it has some added debris, and that's it. And even then, we only get like 8 or 10 areas. I'm not actually really sure how many areas there is. I wasn't really keeping track, but it's definitely not a lot. But hey, maybe the content in hyperspace is so worth it. Maybe the gameplay is so good that it doesn't matter how many of these zones are reused. And well, if you think some new Pokemon, not actually new Pokemon because that would be ridiculous, and literally the worst objectives I have seen in a video game consist as riveting gameplay or peak, then I have nothing to say to you, because obviously you will not change your mind despite what anyone tells you, because this is awful. It is. What the actual is this? Pick up 10 shiny objects, hit 3 floating Pokeballs, catch 5 Pokemon? What? I'm sorry. I can't take it. I wasn't joking when I said the worst objectives I have seen in a video game. I really think this is hard to beat. These quote unquote objectives are what you are mainly doing in this DLC. It is probably 70 to 80% of what you will actually be doing. The rest of the time you will obviously be battling, and there are some hyperspace battle zones that we will cover in a second. But oh god, these hyperspace wild zones are just awful. I am glad that Game Freak added new Pokemon to this game. The roster was very small in the base game, but like I mentioned in my ZA review, I didn't like that many of the base game Pokemon were kind of just put in random wild areas. It just felt like a lot of the Pokemon didn't belong in the wild zones they were actually put in. And well, I guess for this DLC, Game Freak decided that that was a non-problem and just threw the whole concept out the window. Nope. All the new Pokemon are just in the middle of the street now. That's it. No more worrying about where their habitats are or where they belong in a wild zone. That doesn't matter. Just place them right there. Perfect. I will say though, the hyperspace battle zones are much better, even though they have their own set of problems. So just like the hyperspace wild zones, you need a donut to allot you the time to go in. And once you get in, well, you battle. Obviously. But these battles are actually pretty decent. Oh, I also forgot to mention this earlier, but Pokemon go over level 100 now. I know, crazy. And the Donuts Ansha makes you not only allot you time, but they also give your Pokemon a level buff. So early on, Donuts buff your guys like 10 levels, and later on they can go up to like 50 plus. You get the idea. So a lot of Pokemon that you battle in hyperspace are actually pretty powerful, and that's cool, especially when you first start the DLC. Some battles can be really tough depending on what level your Pokemon are in. Disclaimer, all of my guys were roughly around level 80 when I started the DLC, and I felt like that was a pretty decent place to have them since I actually had to use multiple Pokemon for some battles at first. Luckily, this DLC gives you a lot of large and extra large experience candies. So no matter what level you begin the DLC at, you will be able to get all your Pokemon to level 100 pretty fast, which I do think is a good thing, since you might want to catch a new Pokemon that has a new Mega Evolution and you don't want to worry about grinding them up to your team's level. Interestingly enough though, each of these hyperspace battle zones will have a type focus, meaning a lot of the Pokemon you face there will be the type that's noted. This is totally fine. It gives you an idea of what Pokemon you're going to go up against, so you can plan accordingly. Unfortunately though, once you hit level 100, most of the battles in the DLC become one-hit KO simulators like they are in the base game, but still it is somewhat improved, especially if you opt out of using the experience candies. Now I also want to bring a big spotlight to these red dudes. I think they are pretty cool. In most hyperspace battle zones, you will find a few of these red glowing trainers, and those guys have a full team of alpha Pokemon. Well, 3 alpha Pokemon for the most part, which I think is such a neat idea. I wish they would have had something like this in the base game, but hey, I am glad that they're here now. These battles are definitely tougher than the normal ones here, and they give you some pretty great rewards. But sadly, the battle zones are not that great. They suffer from many of the issues that the hyperspace wild zones have, using the same areas over and over again, and the horrible objectives they give you. A lot of the times your list is going to be defeat 3 trainers, then 5 trainers, and 10 trainers. Like, what? Even the base game battle zones had better objectives than this. This is a horrible step backwards and makes these zones feel incomplete. While Game Freak definitely had some good things going here, they had to ruin it by giving us these boring objectives. And frankly, it's just super disappointing. So these hyperspace zones are definitely the main focus of the DLC, but we do get some extra stuff. So there are more mega outbreaks, which like I said in my review, were the best part of the base game. And I can honestly say they are just as good here in the DLC. They are tougher and all the megas are brand new and they all have their own gimmick and moves. And this time you have 2 partners instead of just 1. And you're going to need the other 2 guys because some of these battles are actually pretty tough. In a good way though. You got to go in there with a strategy and with some pretty decent donuts. What I enjoyed most about these was not knowing what megas were coming. I came to this DLC as blind as possible, so I got to enjoy a lot of the reveals. Also not knowing if the new mega had any type changes or stat changes. It was a lot of fun, and again, it was the best part of the DLC for me. And we do get some more mega dimension focused side missions, and well, those they're bad. All of the side missions are either just having one battle or fighting off one or two mega Pokemon. So they are definitely repetitive because this DLC introduced almost no new characters. So a majority of the people that you battle in these side missions are the ones you had already battled multiple times in the base game. But there is one side mission in particular that was just extremely annoying to beat, even with a level 100 Emboar. Now there is a story, and don't worry about spoilers because I'm not gonna spoil anything. There's nothing really to spoil. What you do need to know is that the story does not carry the DLC. It does not warrant that $30 price tag. It's there, it moves the story along, but trust me, it gets very repetitive, just like everything else. This DLC will take you approximately 10 to 12 hours to beat fully, and I promise you by hour 2, you have already gone through the entire gameplay loop of the DLC. And that's not even an exaggeration. There is zero world where this DLC should have cost $30, and if you're wondering how Game Freak dropped this just a month after release, because it's basically a nothing burger. Or should I say, nothing donut.
You need to leave!
This would have been a decent post game to the base Legend ZA that we got. This is a paid equivalent of the Delta episode that we got in Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. It's that short, it's that lacking of any new type of content, and the best thing added to this DLC was a gameplay element that was already in the base game. And they didn't really improve it or change it at all. They just added more of it, which would be fine if this DLC was cheaper or just free. Look, I'm just so tired of talking negatively about Pokemon Legends EA. I'm kind of glad to be putting it down for a little while. I'm not happy that the DLC is not good. I wish it was good, and I just cannot recommend Pokemon Legends EA's Mega Dimensions DLC to anyone. Look, if you don't play competitive Pokemon, you do not need this DLC. If you have no intentions of playing champions, you really do not need this DLC. Trust me. For everybody else, this DLC is totally not worth it. And we've gotten to a point with the Pokemon franchise that you are kind of just paying for the Pokemon at this point. If you're going in it with the mindset that I'm paying $30 for these Mega Stones, maybe that's a little bit more justifiable, but it's just kind of sad that we are getting to this point. We used to get the Pokemon and good content, but now you're kind of just paying for the Pokemon. And mark my words, we are going to see more of this moving forward, especially if Champions becomes huge and the #1 way to play Pokemon. They're not going to need to give you content anymore. They're going to be able to just sell Pokemon directly to players. Maybe that's the direction they just want to go to already, and that's why they release so many megas for a DLC that honestly feels so lackluster. I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below if I'm totally off the mark here, but that's just how I'm feeling right now. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a good one. Peace.